Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna. So this is the breakdown of chapter 5. As you can see, it's broadly divided into 6 sections. And the first couple of sections primarily speaks about Nishkam Karma Yoga. Based on Arjuna's question, whether renouncing work is better or working with detachment is better, Krishna replies, both are pretty much same, but working with detachment is superior and easier, especially for Arjuna as he's a warrior. And then Krishna goes on to say how to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga. A Nishkam Karma Yogi does not identify with his body or the activities that his body performs. Because he is detached, he is not bound by his actions, and therefore he is freed from the reactions of his activities. The section 3 speaks about the 3 doers. When you're on the platform of knowledge, you understand that any activity or any action requires 3 doers. The living entity is the first doer whose only contribution is that he desires to do something. That's all. And then Lord seated as Paramatma sanctions it. So that's the second doer. Finally, the material nature is what does 99% of the job. The material nature facilitates the venue, facilitates the ingredients and everything for doing that action. So when a person is in the platform of knowledge, he understands the role of 3 doers and he does not mistakenly think that he is the doer. The section 4, Lord says how when one is in knowledge and one fixes his consciousness on the super soul, remains equipoised, then such a person will definitely achieve liberation. Section 5 speaks about Ashtanga Yoga. Lord gives a brief preview of Ashtanga Yoga, which is further elaborated in the next chapter. The final section speaks about the person who is in full Krishna consciousness attains liberation easily and is freed from the material miseries. Hare Krishna. So in the 5th chapter, again, it starts with a question from Arjuna. Renunciation of work or working with detachment, which is better, Sanyasa or Karma Yoga? The first verse, 5.1.
Sanyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha shamsasi yashreyate etayorekam tanme brudi sunishchitam. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" Now, the word sannyasa has different meanings. One meaning of the word sannyasa is the the ashram, the final ashram of man. Sannyas ashram, which is represented by different outward symbols like saffron robes, danda, uh, and tilak, and so on. That's the ashram sannyasa. Another meaning of the word sannyasa is just renunciation. When you renounce something, it's called sannyasa. So here, Krishna, Arjuna is asking, do you want me to renounce work? So Arjuna uses the word sannyasam karmanam Krishna. So here the word sannyasa is used as renunciation of work. So Arjuna says, Krishna, now in the fourth chapter, you ask me to renounce work. And then you ask me to work with detachment, karma yoga. So again, Arjuna is confused, as we see in the third chapter, which begins with Arjuna's question: should I just stop all activities and just go and meditate, or should I do the activities? So let's see what Krishna has to say. So in the next 5 verses, starting from 5.2 to 6, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth verse, we find what Krishna has to say. The second verse begins, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sanyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasya Kara Ubhau Tayostu Karma Sanyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. The personality of God had replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So here, Krishna is saying, Arjuna, for you, Karma Yoga is better. So here, the spirit of renunciation in work, sannyasa in karma, not sannyasa of karma. You don't have to renounce the activity, but you have to renounce the spirit of being the doer, right? So it's a sannyasa in karma, performing work with the right attitude of renunciation is superior to inaction with knowledge. Now you have to understand it carefully. Inaction with knowledge, meaning you're full of knowledge and you do nothing. Inaction with knowledge is inferior to working with the spirit of sannyasa or working with the spirit of renunciation. ज्ञेयस्य नित्यसन्न्यासी यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते. One who neither hates nor desires the fruit of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjuna. So the karma yogi is the true sannyasi. So this is the third verse where Lord Krishna is talking about the benefit of being a nishkam karma yogi as opposed to a jnani. Sankhya yoga prathak bala pravadanti na pandita ekam apyasthita samyak ubayor vindate phalam. Only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the result of both. So, karma yoga and sannyasa are same. या सांख्य प्राप्यते स्थानं तद्योगेनापि गम्यते एकं सांख्यं च योगं च य पश्यति स पश्यति. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. Sanyasastu mahabaho dukkam aptum ayogatah yoga yukto muni brahma nachirena gachati. Mere renunciation is difficult. Merely renouncing all activities yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotion service can achieve the supreme without delay. So as we can see, Lord Krishna clearly says that renunciation, working in the spirit of renunciation, are same, but for Arjuna, working is better because premature renunciation is distressful.
In the fifth chapter, from verse 7 to 16, the primary theme is that of Nishkam Karma Yoga, that which frees one from bondage. In this section, we see again two broad divisions, verse 7 to 12 and from verse 13 to 16. Verse number 7 to 12, the main theme is the characteristics of a yoga yukta, a person who is self-controlled. Such a person is never entangled in the actions. He is a doer, yet he remains a non-doer. He is aware that he is not the doer. And all his activities are for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, and he does so with complete detachment. He has no desire for the results, and his activities are done for the purification, and this way he attains peace. Verse number 7. Yoga yukta vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyah sarvabhutatma bhutatma kurvannapi na lipyate. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Verse number 8. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvaved Pashyan Shrinvan Sprishan Jigran Ashnan Gachan Swapan Shasan. A person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Pralapan Visrajan Grihnan Unmishan Nimishan Api Indriyan Indriyartheshu Vartanta iti dharayan. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. He remains a doer, yet is a non-doer. Verse number 10. ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन padmapatram ivambasa. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the result unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful reaction, as a lotus leaf is untouched by water. कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा आत्मशुद्धये. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, and intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. युक्तकर्मा फलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्ठिकीम् अयुक्तकामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Verse number 13 to 16. The main theme of this section is the knowledge of the three doers. Every action that the living entity conducts has to be carried out by three entities. One, the living entity, or the soul. The other, the material nature, and the Supreme Lord. Also, another important theme of this section is that ignorance bewilders the soul while knowledge enlightens. In the 13th verse, Lord says that when the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, which is the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभु न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Verse number 16. Jnanena tu tat ajnanam yesham नाशितमात्मना तेषाम् आदित्यवज्ञानं prakashayati tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nations is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in daytime. From verse number 17 to 29, the focus of this section is how to attain liberation by focusing on the Supreme. This section again can be subdivided from 17 to verse 21 or 22, which primarily speaks about the symptoms of a self-realized person, that by focusing on the Supreme makes him equipoised and attain Brahman platform. Verse number 17. Tad buddhayastadaatmanas tannishthastat gacchantya punaravrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashah. When one's intelligence, mind, faith and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So this verse clearly speaks about how focusing on the Supreme leads to liberation. Verse number 18. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastinis Shuni Chaiva Shopakecha Pandita Samadarshina. The key word here is Samadarshina, which means equal vision of a self-realized person. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. From verse 19 to 22, the 4 verses, is all about the symptoms of a self-realized person. Iheva terjitas sargo yesham samye sthitam manah nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te sthita. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. न प्राश्यते प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य चाप्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः. A person who neither rejoices upon receiving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the signs of God, is already situated in transcendence. Bahyasparsheshvasattatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within in this way. The self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्त कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधा. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. This verse speaks about how sense enjoyment is distressful. Finally, we come to the last section of this chapter, verse 23 to 29. From verse 22 to 25, we find that the Lord talks about sense enjoyment being distressful. Therefore, he advises Arjuna to tolerate agitations till the end of life by delighting inwards, or in other words, Brahma Bhuta stage. 25 and 26 verses talk about how to attain liberation. Verse 27 and 28 briefly touches upon Ashtanga Yoga and how to attain liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. And finally, the last verse, number 29, Lord gives the peace formula that knowing Krishna or Bhakti Yoga being the topmost platform. Verse number 23. Shaknoti haiva yasodum praksharira vimokshanaat kamakrododbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. Yontasukhontaramas tathantar jyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto digacchati. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme and ultimately attains the Supreme. Lord here is talking about delighting inwards or the Brahma Bhuta stage. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaida Yatatmana Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. Here, Lord speaks about the sadhana for attaining liberation. Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Sparshan kritva bahirbahyam chakshushchaivantare bhruvo pranabano samo kritva nasyabhyantaracharino yatendriya manobuddhir munirmoksha parayana Vigatecha bhaya krodho yasada mukta eva saha. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breath within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. So here we see a mention about Ashtanga Yoga and how one can achieve liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shantim richyati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So here, Lord says at the end of this chapter, the final peace formula. How knowing Krishna in Bhakti Yoga is the powerful formula for eternal peace.